discuss is the benefits of professional certification. But before we start that, I want each panel member to take about 3 minutes to introduce themselves and what they do at their organization.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Galuzzo. I am the Director of Human Resources for the South Carolina State Housing Finance and Development Authority, also known as SC Housing. Our agency is one of 70 state agencies here in South Carolina. Our agency specifically helps with low to moderate income families find affordable housing here in the state, across the Midlands, down to Charleston and up towards the North Country. As the Director of Human Resources, I have about 150 employees within the agency that I'm responsible for all facets of their personnel life. And so it's very similar to your battalion or brigade S1 functions with some added additional bonuses. And I've been there for almost a year now, and I really enjoy what I do. So it's a great opportunity. So I'm thankful very much for Chief Cheese to have me here on the panel today.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Dylan Raymond, and I am a couple things. I work with Shell. I'm a military recruiter. I'm embedded within the recruitment department at Shell, and basically what we do is go out to different military sites or bases, bring military talent back, and present to the business unit. So we consider ourselves, myself and my partners in Navy SWO, we consider ourselves translators to help the businesses understand what the military is going to bring to the fight. I'm also a published author of a transitional guide. It's called Rucksack to Briefcase. And what I do is basically it's a transitional to assist service members in going through the transition process, whether it's resumes, interviewing techniques, networking, anything of that sort. I'm also a service member, still serving the reserves today, with one of the best ranks, I would say, in the military, CW3. I love the NCOs too. I was NCO too. So I got a couple days in the military, 25 years. Still serving the 4th ESC out of San Antonio, HR tech within the SPO HR section. So I had a very successful career. Went up the enlisted side, served as both a drill instructor, I served as a recruiter. Then I transitioned over to deployment, so I actually walked a mile in your boots as well. So thank you for having me. And me and Chief Cheese, we actually went to Warren candidate course, so that will show you the power of networking and relationships.
In the morning, I won't take that NCO joke literally. My name is James Shelton. I served in the United States Army for 25 years. I'm a military relations manager with Lockheed Martin Corporation. I am presently the senior military relations manager for the Central region, so I cover everything west of Nashville, Tennessee, and everything east of Denver, Colorado, straight up and down. My responsibility is to help transition in military people get access to our hiring team. So I'm not a recruiter. I'm a manager that puts you in front of the managers immediately when I get your resume. So it's a really good benefit of meeting someone like myself because you get immediate exposure. I've taught resume writing, interview techniques for our company. I ran our recruiting center probably for about 6 years, and then I got asked, because of my background in the military, would I come and help the transition military decode the challenges of getting in the company. And so I was asked to come to do this. I'm very appreciative. I was telling some of the people today that I was talking to up here that I have a job that I do for free. I'm just fortunate enough they pay me to do it because I was a soldier and I am a soldier still.
Hello everyone, my name is Julie Bermia. Some of you know me as Chief Reyes. I see a lot of familiar faces. It is such an honor to be here today. I'm currently working for Deloitte after having served 22 years in the Army, coming up as a 75 Delta, cool, and ending my career as a CW4 420 Alpha. I was hired by Deloitte about a little close to 2 years ago to work on their defense account as a federal human capital consultant, and I currently do HR transformation, which involves technology adoption and business process reengineering for defense organizations. Some of my past clients are JIDO. I also work for NOAA, and most recently working for DIA. I'm about to transition into a new job with IPS-A, so I'm pretty thrilled about that, going back to my roots and working with a lot of the same people that I had the privilege of working with before, and hopefully do some great stuff to continue to support servicemen and women. In my job at Deloitte, I also focus, I'm on the Army account leadership team, which helps develop business opportunities with the Army as well as Army recruiting. So I work really closely with bringing on talent at Deloitte, reviewing resumes, looking at potential candidates to come join the firm.
Good morning. My name is Sherry Davis, and I just recently retired after 28 years with the service. I first started out on the bright side, so the enlisted side, as a combat medic. Then I went to the other side, the dark side, I guess you guys like to call it, and I became an AG officer and spent most of my time in the Army doing that. And I think it's probably one of the strongest and most needed things to do for the service, because it really does translate everything you need to do when you leave the service. All you gotta do is just kind of take your time. I currently work for General Electric as their youngest executive, I guess, as an integration leader. So we're the 7th largest banking institution in the world, and my job is to help drive strategy across over 50,000 persons in 8 different businesses through 12 different countries, including the US. I also work with their Veteran Network group and their other affinity groups to help them understand what the new Soldier for Life looks like and what the new entity of that soldier is and how they can continue to bring value to their organization. I'm very excited. I met Chief during my last job, where I met Rebecca during the last job, and where I went out to all of the different companies, all different sizes, to talk about who you are and why they need you and what they need to do to integrate you and then develop you into future leadership. So I'm really excited to be here, and I hope and look forward to a great discussion.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rebecca Hastings. I'm with the HR Certification Institute, and I work directly with the HR professionals who write and review our exam questions and exam forms for the PHR and the SPHR. So I'll be most active in the discussion related to certification, but I also was a recruiter in my former days. I have a background as an HR professional. For the last 20 or so years, I've really been an HR subject matter expert in a variety of different roles. So I've definitely civilian sector the whole way, although my husband does work for the Navy. I probably shouldn't say that to this crowd, but he's a civilian. Sorry. But, you know, we're definitely Army strong with our daughters, so thrilled to be here and honored to have the opportunity to talk with you all today.
That worked out perfectly because we ended with HRCI, Introduction to Certifying Agency. So we're going to go into our first topic, the benefits of professional certification.
All right, that's great. Appreciate the opportunity. But before we begin that, I have a question for you guys. Because as we sit here and we look at this military group, it's very easy to do what we typically do in corporate structure, which is, hey, we're all military, we're all Army. All right, but if you look around the room, there's a lot of different experience in this room. And I constantly am telling people who have very limited exposure to the military that we are not a monolithic group. So to prove that, I'm going to ask a couple of basic questions. How many of these people have less than 10 years of Army service? Raise your hand. Okay, how many of you have more than 10 years of Army service? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you have a bachelor's degree? All right, how many of you have a master's degree as it relates to an MBA or HR or some HR-related master's? All right, a few of you. How many of you know that you're going to transition from the military in the next 3 years? Raise your hand. All right, you can start seeing that there's some different groups and people with different reasons to attend. And then the other group that's here, because I see them, how many DA civilians do we have here in the room? Or family members? All right, So that's an even different group, and you talk about experience. My wife has a degree in accounting. She has schlepped around after me for the last 20 years. So when she wanted to go back into her field, you know, transitioning as a military spouse is also difficult. So all of this, the reason why I ask these questions is because it gives me an idea of who our audience is. And so when I talk about the benefits of certification, I can speak directly to you. So I knew I wanted to transition from the military. Started my process about 2 years out before I actually transitioned. And I knew that I wanted to continue the line of work that I was doing in the military, but I didn't want to go into a military organization. I didn't want to go work for a contracting agency like Booz Allen Hamilton. I didn't want to necessarily work as a military corporate doing basically what you hear some of our panelists talk about. I wanted to go to an agency that could care less if I was a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. They just wanted to know, can I do a job in HR? And so in order to explain that in a very short, concise way on a resume, when you start looking at what my experience was as a Brigade S1, that's really hard to translate. Even if you say human resources professional and you start explaining what it is that someone does in that field, it still doesn't quite translate. It doesn't line up perfectly. So there are companies that don't have people who are sitting in a military capacity. When they look at that, they need to know that you can do the technical side of the job. You have to be the right cultural fit for the agency, and we can talk about that, but you have to at least have the basics down. You have to be able to have the technical capacity. And so how do you show that? How do you demonstrate that? How do you show that you have competency? Well, a good way to do that is through a certification, and a civilian certification. And a few years ago, while I was still in the Army, we started this partnership with HRCI to say, you know, our folks do this work, but they don't have anything when they leave the military that shows any civilian agency that they can do this work. And so we need a method, a pathway by which people who've been doing this work can get a certification. Now that's not to say, and several people have tried this, if you're infantry or armor and all of a sudden you decide, hey, I want to go into the HR after 20 plus years, then that's not going to work. You can't get your credentialing that way. This is for people who've been doing this. And a true story, I actually had a 3-star general call me wanting to certify. And that person's experience was not really in the field of HR. Oh, I can pass this test. Okay, so we went through and tried the process of certification and wasn't successful. The process is not easy to become certified. You have to know our business. So the benefits when you do that show not only do you know the business, but you know it very well. And so I would recommend, if that's what you really want to do once you leave the military, that a certification like a PHR or SPHR would be the way to do that. So.
Yeah, I want to echo, how many people here have an associate's degree? Okay, so that was me. I had an associate's degree at the time with a lot of experience, and I needed to figure out, well, how do I make myself more competitive? I mean, I since went on and got my bachelor's degree, but what made me more competitive is I decided to go ahead and get certified with the PHR certification. And what that does is you can put that next to your name, so that's going to stand out up front. So along with my experience, the PHR certification, that made me more marketable as I pursued my bachelor's degree. So consider that as well, as far as credentialing, whether it's the PHR, the SPHR, the GPHR, certification is going to be a plus. So if you're saying, hey, I just got an associate's degree, utilize that to opportunity to consider if you're going to stay in the HR field, the PHR certification.
I'm going to take a step in problem solving here. Rather than us passing the lavalier back and forth, we're going to pass the hand mic and we'll give the lavalier to
It's outstanding. Thank you. So the certification, it's important that you take it if that's your interest. But I will also tell you it's absolutely important that you explore it even if it's not your interest, because it does a couple of things for you. With their help, to include Lieutenant Colonel Galuzzo, I took it and I drove everybody crazy for 6 months. It takes you to that level. It does. It's not easy. So he's serious when he says it's not easy. I had audio in my ear, video in my face, cue cards in my pocket, books on my desk. I would go into the office early and study like I was studying for my dissertation with my master's program. And then I tried to get my boss in it just so I can get more time at work to do it. He gave me the time anyway, but he didn't do it. But my point is, it is challenging. But after you get it, what it does, even if you choose not to move into the HR world, it allows individuals who are not affiliated with the service to understand your capacity. They understand that you have the capacity to grasp analytical information outside of your cultural environment that you're in now, and it opens up 3 doors. So point in case, I'm an HR professional. I'm a senior HR leader. I don't do HR professionally now. Right? I look at numbers and I do analytics and drive business strategy. But what opened up the door, because I'm that girl, I went back and asked, why did you give me the opportunity to come in here and talk to you about a role in an environment that I had no experience in? And it was because they said I demonstrated the capacity to be able to work outside of my Army realm. Okay? So that's something I want you to think about as you're looking at certifications, to include anything else.
Certification is not for everybody because it is challenging, and what it does is it really sets you apart from the competition. It says, this is my profession, I am choosing to do what I think most people would agree is one of the hardest things to do in the profession, to acquire one of these certifications. There are some people that won't even try. So you all do hard stuff all the time. You've chosen a very, very difficult profession. You've chosen to serve in a way that other people have not. They've not stepped up to the plate. They've decided that's not the route for them. They're going to focus on, maybe their own career advancement and do other things, but not serving. So you guys are used to hard stuff. So that's an advantage for you that you can leverage. You've got the discipline, you've got the focus, and you've got the support network through the AGCRA and amongst your peers to do something like this, to create study groups. But it's not for everyone. So if you decide that you're not going to be an HR professional when you transition, and you know that right now, then that's probably not the right path for you. But if you do, as Colonel Galluzzo has done, really want to continue that, you want to go out and be an HR generalist, be an HR director or HR manager after you transition, then this is definitely something that's going to help you out. You already know that you have an obstacle to overcome, and that is helping prospective employers understand about your military service. So you speak a different language at times from the civilian employer who's looking at your resume. You already have to overcome that barrier. The certification will then give you a leg up on somebody who has the ability to show comparable experience, and you've got those letters after your name and they don't.
So let's talk about the pilot. One of the things that we wanted to do was to give soldiers an opportunity, and officers, and I'll go back to the right side, left side, or right side, dark side. We know officers who have degrees, like people like me, can have a simpler time transitioning than soldiers because of how our resumes will look. And it goes back to kind of the competitive edge of an associate's degree, or maybe you just have a lot of experience. And so one of the things we wanted to do with this was to focus really to see how do we leverage soldiers, because one of the things that struck me was 42 Alpha specifically was one of the top 10 MOSs that had the highest unemployment rates over the last few years. And that's, to me, is just unacceptable. Because when I know the quality of the people who have worked in my S1 shops, people like Chief Cheese, I would hire them tomorrow. And because they can translate really what HR is transforming into, which is, it used to be very transactional, but now it is very strategic. It is all about how do we leverage our human capacity, our human capital, to improve an organization. And I can think of no other group of people well suited or trained to do that than enlisted. So this pilot came out, and I think I saw her in here, Staff Sergeant Henderson, somewhere in this room. Or, yeah, there she is, way in the back. How many applications? 600? Over 600 people wanted this for 70 slots. That tells you how competitive that group of people that are going to go through this process are, that are serious about credentialing. So if this is successful, and I highly expect it will be, this is going to be one of those things that will be something that the Army will be able to say and champion. Not just for us, and sir, I'd ask you to take this back to the Pentagon, that this is the model by which we can do certifications for the Army.
The next topic of discussion would be civilian education. I just recently graduated Warrant Officer hourly, and that seemed to be a big topic of discussion in reference to civilian education. Which one is more important? Is the civilian education more important, or the certification more important, or both?
I think we can all agree that the resounding message here is to up your game. So whether it's through professional certification or civilian, just upper level education, I think that we all have heard it before, up your game. We do it for promotion, we do it to prepare ourselves to be competitive against our peers when we're going up against them for promotion. So we should be doing that to prepare ourselves for the outside as well, because those days of hiring veterans because they're deployment returnees, I'll tell you what, there are a million of us deployment returnees out there that you're competing against. So what sets you apart from them? So you have to up your game. So if you've already worked towards your associate's degree, earned that, work on your bachelor's degree, work on your master's degree. The truth of the matter is, at some of these companies, they really don't even care that you have a master's degree in basket weaving. It really, the fact that you have a master's degree or you have a title behind your name says a lot. Where you go to school sometimes matters to some people, and I've found myself in conversations with professional executives at my company, and almost the very first question they ask is like, so where'd you go to school? And it seems to matter more to them. So my immediate response is, I am an experienced hire veteran. And although I do have degrees, I find it important for them to know. And I'm upping my game in their eyes. So the conversation almost immediately goes, whoop, because how do you top that? But I will tell you that, just up your game. Focus on that more than anything. Figure out what you really want to do, and if you're not sure what that is, then perhaps pursue a certification in program management or something that transcends across different fields. Because I know that some people in the audience are not HR. So focus on some things that you can certainly offer other types of organizations if you're not focused on what exactly you want to do when you grow up.
So, a great question. What is more important, a certification or a formal education? And I agree. I agree with Julie. You should up your game, but this is the key. Your game is already upped most of the time. I have the distinct pleasure to look at a lot of candidates that come through, and I do a comparative analysis with my senior executives all the time about where you're standing educationally compared to where somebody else is standing who's not necessarily going into a very specific role. This is the reason why you want as many degrees as you possibly can stomach at one time. You don't have to do 12 masters, you don't have to do 5 different bachelors. But you do want to show a consistent progression upward because that is money, flat out. It is a bargaining opportunity between myself and Johnny, who may be sitting next to me. I may be worth upward to 5 or 6K more, depending on where you're going and what you're doing and what organization you're going to, but that is equal to money, or it's equal to an added benefit, or it's equal to an added opportunity somewhere. So it's okay if you only have an associate's and you want to do a certification because you're going into a specialized area. That is fine. You left money on the table, and I don't like leaving money on the table. I like money, but you have to want to do what you're doing. So I would tell you, at a minimum, at least walk through the door with a bachelor's degree. If certification is what you're looking for, then get that. And then if you can handle it or want to, then pursue your master's, or at least walk into a room saying, I'm pursuing a master's. Because that will put the money back on the table and the opportunities flourish.
So,
Paper, rock, scissors.
So, go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Major Jones, SSI. If someone has 2 masters in different areas, obviously certification, should they also strive for a PhD, or would that be sufficient based on your experience and knowledge?
So that's funny, because I actually was thinking about pursuing a PhD. And I have a coach, a life coach, who said to me, if you don't want to necessarily teach, and he jumped it because he's already published, but most PhDs get a PhD so they can either teach in a realm, or they can do research, or they can write. So if you're doing it to open up a door, you have to dig deeper and figure out why you want to get it, because it's a very life-changing event. It's admirable, and if that's something that you desire, absolutely get it. But it's not a requirement to make the doors flourish unless you want to do one of those three things: research, teach, or publish, or be Superman like him and publish ahead of time. You're welcome.
So if you're going to do a professional level HR position, you really are going to need a bachelor's degree in order to even make it to the review pile. A certification is going to be an advantage, as we've already talked about. For the money aspect, there actually has been research, academic research that HRCI has conducted, as well as independent research that was done in the field by PayScale, that shows that those who have a certification are going to make more money than those who do not. An HRCI certification, PHR, SPHR. So there is definitely a money issue to deal with. In terms of the question about a PhD, I agree. If you're not planning on going into teaching or an academic institution or a research facility, then employers may look at you and say, you're overqualified. You know, we really don't need someone with this much education. You know, what we really want to see is the practical experience, and that's the hard part to sometimes translate. So one thing I would encourage you all to do now is look at the job ads that are out there for HR managers, HR directors. Look at the kinds of things that they're going to be asking someone to do, and think about how your experiences compare to what they're asking for in those job ads. And then look at what they're asking for in terms of qualifications, because then you'll be able to compare what you've already done in terms of education and training, and see how that compares to what employers are actually looking for. And then I know we're going to talk about social media as well, but I encourage you to network with civilian HR professionals. It could be through a local HR organization. It could be you know, someone that you know through maybe a community service organization, or it could just be someone you connect with on LinkedIn and you say, hey, listen, I'm going to be transitioning in a few years. I really am interested in learning more about the job you do. Would you be willing to give me 15 minutes to talk about what you do so that I could better understand how my work experience compares to yours? And there are HR people that will do that because, you know, as long as you're asking something reasonable, a short amount of time, the specific outcome that you want to achieve, you know, people will say yes.
We got a question in the back, and then we're going to move on to...
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Venzer, and I had a quick question reference certification SPHR versus GPHR, especially for those that are in more of a global corporation like GE or et cetera. What would you recommend, and then why one versus the other?
Great question. So the GPHR really is the Global Professional and Human Resource Management certification. And it is truly designed for someone that works in a multinational corporation where they have offices all over the world, and they regularly have employees moving from different offices. What happens in that kind of environment is you have cultural adaptation things, you have relocation issues, you have tax issues, benefits issues, and those are the types of things that the GPHR deals with. That it really is a very unique area. Now, you do not have to make the choice between the GPHR and the SPHR, but if you want to start with one and you are in that kind of role, the GPHR is a great alternative to go for. There are a lot of people that have a PHR and a GPHR, or an SPHR and a GPHR, because they are different bodies of knowledge. They deal with different expertise areas in HR. But you know, if you're going to pick one and you're in that kind of role, a GPHR is a great one to choose.
Well, moving on to the next topic, job interviews. That was one of the main topics that I wanted to discuss here, because in the military we don't do job interviews unless it's a nominative assignment, say to the Pentagon, White House communication. So, panel members, could you give us the tidbits on how to conduct yourself during a job interview?
So let me start real quick, and excuse me, I just have to go back and say one thing. From a Lockheed Martin perspective, my company, I'm not certified in PHR. I'm not certified. Our vice president of human resources does not have it. I will tell you, it's a great discriminator if you want to separate yourself from the crowd. You cannot beat it. You look on any jobs that we offer that we're looking for human resources professionals, and you'll see PHR, SPHR preferred but not required. There's something that's called relevant work experience. If you've done something for 15 and 20 years or more, you probably got it. The only thing you're missing is the degree that goes with it. But those years count as constructive credit. So just wanted to let you hear that from a Lockheed Martin perspective. E7s and above get looked at really hard at Lockheed Martin. Captains and above get looked at really hard at Lockheed Martin for human resources type things. We can talk about more of that later, but I just wanted to put that out there. You don't have to have it, but it's a great thing to separate yourself from a group of 300 people that are applying for the same job you're looking for. Okay? What were we on, ma'am? I don't even know that.
Interviewing.
So, you want to say?
Okay, with the job interviews, I like to use analogies. It makes it a lot simpler. It's really a mindset too. I see a lot of people that go into interviews and they look at it, it's like us against them. You know, the bottom line is you got to think that the reason they have this position available is because they have a problem. And if you can identify your skill sets and how to solve that service member's, or the hiring manager's problem, and then you come to a point where you negotiate salary. So it's a win-win. Look at it as it's a partnership. They got a problem, you got a solution, and then you negotiate for a salary. Or you can look at it as very simple. If you come in sitting at this table right now, you're sitting at the table, and it's a cup sitting in front of you, and within the cup is your skill sets. But that cup is actually represents a problem. So now from your perspective, you look at the cup and you may see the handle on the left side. And from the perspective of the hiring manager, they see it from the right side. You know, but you have to get good at explaining what's in that cup, your skill set, so that person can see and understand how that your skill sets will solve their problem. So basically, your answers, a lot of times they ask behavior-based interviewing questions. Give me an example of a time you had something happen. I always tell people, get good at telling the story. You know, the better the story, use the STAR method, situation or task. What action did you take and what was the results? And the results should be in alignment with what the problem is that that hiring manager is hiring for. So, and that's the key, it's being able to understand how to communicate what your skill sets will solve that individual's problem. So basically I say, what's in it for them, although it's what's in it for you, if that makes sense. And I'll just keep it simple because we don't have a lot of time, but I'll pass it on.
All right, so some practical advice. How many people here have been to a board? Sat at a board, okay? An interview is not a board.
Right.
Don't sit like you're at a board getting ready to hear the sergeant major's questions, because that doesn't go well, okay? You want to have a friendly conversation. You want to talk about what skill sets and talents that you're going to bring to this agency to make this agency better. So that should tell you that you need to do your homework. Learn about the agency that you're applying for. If the job sounds great, it's the greatest job since ever, but you know absolutely nothing about the company, then you really don't know what the job is. Because until you understand the culture of the company that you're going to go work for, then it becomes very difficult to figure out how you're going to fit into that organization. So do some research on the company that you're looking at. When you're in the interview, you have to purge that whole military mindset. And I'll give you a great example. I interviewed while I was still, I still had short haircut and no facial hair. And then I showed up for my first day of work looking like this, and they were like, what happened? You know, I wanted to show them that they were not getting this Type A, Great Santini military commander guy that they were getting in there, because I was the first male human resources director that this agency ever hired, and I was the first military person in HR that they had hired. So they were terrified. They thought that I was coming in and I was just going to be this, brute force guy. And I came back in very laid back. But I said, there was no difference between what I did in the interview and how I'm going to approach this HR. So be authentic. Be authentic in your interview. Don't try and figure out gamesmanship, because it doesn't do you any good and it doesn't do the company any good. So those are my 3 practical pieces of advice to you.
Julie.
Question?
Go ahead.
You have a question?
No, I apologize. You go ahead. I want to hear you.
Just to add on to the great advice that you've already heard as it relates to interviewing, once again, I can't emphasize enough, up your game. So if all you've known to do is wear that uniform, which you look sharp in, whether it's your dress uniform or your ASUs, you need to find some good mentors and some people that are already out there working in the corporate industry, if that's where you want to work, and ask them where they shop. Ask them how to do it. Men, especially men, I say this because us women, it's ingrained in us. We are wired as shoppers and fashionistas. But guys, I will say this because I've been in a room full of men suited up during Soldier for Life events, and they get called out. Do you happen to be wearing a suit? It's like you can tell that these suits are old. They're old from many years ago. Okay, they've been passed on from generations. It used to belong to dad before it belonged to you, and you wore it to your brother's wedding 12 years ago. People could tell. Invest. Take the time. You're gonna get, if you're retiring, you probably can afford to go out and buy a few suits, okay? And women, same to you. It's okay, step out. It's okay to be the overdressed person. You want to be the overdressed person. If you want to do business, then you dress like you want to do business, right? And don't over embellish. It's okay. So now that I'm retired, I can color my nails any color I want. I can do my hair, and I can color it any color I want. It doesn't mean that I have to. So I can wear red lipstick, and it doesn't mean that I have to. Not for the job interview. So keep it low, toned down, very conservative, very neat, very professional, and you'll be spot on every time. And I agree with having formulated what you want to say. If you're building your network already, you're already having conversations with executives and hiring officials, I highly encourage that. That is my resounding message today. The network is so important, and it helps you with the communication and feeling a lot more comfortable around people that may potentially be interviewing you someday.
So just 3 things, and they're very practical, and they really do echo, but I want to give you an action item. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to develop what you will hear be called an elevator speech. No more than 30 seconds. From the time, and I want you to do it, you get in an elevator, because this is what people do. Get in an elevator on the first floor. Press the top floor. If you really want to get good, press the middle floors. Okay, so if it's a 10th floor building, go to the 5th floor. You should be able to tell me what you want to do or are doing in a very succinct time, from the time I step on the elevator and say good morning to the time I tell you to have a good day and I'm walking off the elevator. So you should make me want to go, who was that? So develop an elevator speech, 30 seconds, make it tight and concise, clean the language up, no who was, no none of that. Okay? Find the language that's appropriate in the culture that you're trying to get to. The second thing I would tell you is, when Julie said it, invest. I dress halfway okay. Sometimes I put a lot of colors together, but it's because I like color. So when I feel that kind of way, I actually went to the store and I spent time. They have what they call personal shoppers that are free for you. You go into a Macy's, you go into a Bloomingdale's, you go into Nordstrom, whatever the stores that you like. Most stores have figured it out, and they have a personal shopper there, a personal person that you can go to and say, this is me, This is what I like, this is what I'm doing, please pull something together. And they run around the store and get everything from your underwear to that cuffling that you put in your shirt. And they don't cost you any money. It's free. Men and women should do that first shot out, because what you believe looks good on you may not necessarily what is the best thing for you. So that's the second piece. The third piece of advice, when you are going on an interview, have a conversation, and your conversation starts from the first time you walk through the door. This is no lie. When I had my interview with General Electric, anybody who knows me knows I'm going to say hello from the first person I see at the front of the door, no matter if they're cleaning the stairwell or not, to the president. And I'm probably going to try to say hi to the person who's cleaning the stairwell first, because my safety's at hand. And then I'll get to the president later, right? So you say hi, be cordial, like Colonel Galluzzo said, be authentic, don't overdo it. And you say hi going in the elevator. You say hi when you get to the top floor. You don't have to get there 15 minutes early, not the Army, but you should be there on time, and you should look like you know where you're going. Then sit down and just have a discussion, and it's usually couched this way. The younger you are in the job that you're going to, the more pointed questions they're going to ask you. The more senior you become, whether you're an NCO, warrant officer, or officer, the more of it is, how do you present your ideas? How do you get me to understand what you're talking about? And then what do you do if I throw something at you? They want to know if you can deal with ambiguity. So those are the three things. And then when you walk out, the last person you say have a good day with, I'm going to tell you, is the door guy, or the secretary, or the admin exec, because this is what they do, because I do it. I walk out and say, what was the attitude like? I go all the way downstairs to the guy who's running the cafeteria, or to the front door security men. And if what you presented to me is not what you presented downstairs, you're probably not the guy or gal I want. And people actually do that. But what you don't send a representative either to this, when you show up, and who shows up at the interview and you get the role should be the person who shows up when you get the role. Okay? The ma'am has.
Let's hear your question first.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thanks. I have two. One is, how many interviews have you all participated in? That's the first one. And then what's an example of a question at the end of the process you may be asked, do you have any questions of us as the interviewee? So those are my two questions.
Okay, I would want to say one thing before we get to answering your questions, because I think those are really good. I agree with everything that's been said here, and I would say one thing that you want to do is do a little bit of practice with interview questions. You can just Google interview questions. You can especially Google behavioral interview questions, and just have someone throw them at you. So you'll have the opportunity to really think about your own experience and how you can frame it if you're in the context of an interview. So true story, when I interviewed for my position with HRCI, I had been on a job interview for many years, and I was asked this question. Pick 3 words that describe you. So just think about that for a second. On the spot, are you going to be able to come up with 3 words that describe you? So one of mine was weird. And then the next question was, okay, why did you pick those 3 words? So now I'd come up with 3 random words, and I had to explain what I had just come up with. I got the job, and I think the reason I got the job, because one of the words I picked was weird, and I explained why I'm weird, and I'll explain it to anybody who wants to know. But anyway, I was myself. I was genuine. And you cannot go in there being so completely buttoned up and tight in something that you are uncomfortable in, the traditional blue suit, and do a good job interview. You need to bring some of yourself into it. So if that means you've got sparkly nail polish, I'm admiring yours, that's okay. You got to be yourself. The one thing that I would, one piece of advice I would give you as well is, this builds on the research question, is look on the company's career website for things that talk about their culture, because if their dress code is 100% casual and you show up in a blue suit, they're going to say, whoa, this person has not done their research. So you want to do that kind of research, and you can also go to a website called Glassdoor, where people put their own, opinions about working for that company. So actual employees, and there's a lot of good information there. So check out Glassdoor for a particular organization and see if they're there. So in terms of the questions that you asked, I've changed jobs every 4 or 5 years, and most of my last, I've been with the same 2 organizations for 25 years, and so they were internal interviews, so people already knew me. I still had to go through a formal interview process. The thing that was a struggle for me is I had to sort of encapsulate who I was and think about, well, why would I really want this next position? So I don't really have the best experience to answer your particular questions, but to your point about asking questions, that's absolutely essential because it shows that you have done your homework and you know enough about the company, and there are things that you want to know because it's not just about them learning about you. You also need to learn about them to find out if it's a place you want to work for. So it's not just a buyer's market on their side. You're also buying into this opportunity. So use that to find out, is this a culture you're really gonna like? Are there other former service members who work here? Is the company involved in community service activities? Is there any mentoring opportunities? There's all kinds of questions that you could ask that may be of interest to you.
So I just retired in September, and I simultaneously went through 3 interview processes, really just to see what it was going to be like. After I've kind of spoken to all these organizations, I wanted to see if they were starting to implement it, and got offered all 3 jobs, so lucky for me, probably, so thank God. The hardest question that they asked me was how did I deal with ambiguity, and I had to explain it. But the question that I asked them was, how do you deal with ambiguity? Because I'm an ambiguous event for them, coming to them. I am one of 3 military people that they've hired, but I'm the only Army person, and the other 2 are really very finance oriented, and they went into very specialized jobs. So I asked them, how did they do that? And then I asked them, why was I the front runner? So I asked, am I the front runner, after I already knew the answer. And then I asked them, why was I the front runner? And they explained to me what that was about. So it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to ask where you're sitting in the pile. You just got to be delicate how you do it. And it has to be at the end of your whole discussion, and it's a feeling thing. If you think it's good, then ask. If you don't ask. But it's okay. So that's what I did.
Well, for me, I had 2 job interviews before going to Deloitte, both of which I got selected for. And understand that it really depends on the level that you're applying for. So if you're applying for a more junior level position, then you may potentially have to go through a significant number of interviews before you're even called to be told that you're selected. And it may, depending if it's government or commercial, this may be a long process. For me, I was pretty much, when you're applying for executive level positions, they pretty much made up their mind almost always, if you're being called to even have the conversation in the first place. I was asked one question by Deloitte, and although I had gone on the website and studied all those questions, and I was nervous as heck, the one question I was asked was, why do you want to work for Deloitte? What makes Deloitte special for you to want to work here? And thank God I did the research and I went online and I saw what the positions were about and the work that they had already been doing for the Department of Defense, because I was able to answer that question right away. And on the receiving end, on the other side of the coin, I'm involved in a lot of interviews. So I am involved in doing interviews for people that are being hired onto Deloitte. And I do that probably on a monthly basis. I'm sitting either on an interview panel or involved in interview events that put potential candidates through. And a lot of them are campus hires. Some of them are servicemen and women like you. It starts off with the basic pre-screening interview, and then it evolves into an interview panel and a case study. So case study is they're throwing something at you and they want you to provide your best solution for this problem. They'll even give you a dry eraser board, some markers, pens and pencils, and they'll give you about an hour to figure it out. And based on your response, they'll make a decision amongst the panel whether or not you're a good candidate for that job. At least that's my experience with Deloitte.
As we pass the microphone around because of the time constraint, we're gonna knock out all three topics at the same time. So we're gonna ask each panel member to go ahead and tell us about how to conduct yourself on social media, because as we know, as we move further into the 21st century, the paper resume is becoming obsolete. A lot of the job recruiters are looking at LinkedIn. And also tell us about how to set up our resume, because we don't do resumes in the military. And last but not least, speak about your transition from the military to civilian. So each panel member gets about 2 to 3 minutes to knock that out.
So let me go real quick then. I probably started in probably 3,000 interviews. I dream interviews of people that we've talked to and hired and didn't hire. One thing I'll tell you, know what's on your resume. Don't assume that the people that are sitting in front of you do not know what they're asking you. The people that are asking you the questions, they know the answers. In Lockheed Martin, we want to hear you communicate. We ask behavioral style, open-ended questions that you can't say yes or no to. We want to hear it come out of your mouth and what you think. All the time. You're going to have that. Appearances, they're deadly in our company. If you got crazy messages on your cell phone and you got that as a point of contact, take it off. Because I've literally called people for a job interview and I heard, and it was, hung up, went to the next one. On social media, be careful what you post. People are looking at that. Lockheed Martin will type your name in the computer and see what you have out there, because it's important for us to have the right fit. If we get the right person, right fit, we got a happy employee. If we don't do that there, we just can't bring all kind of craziness into our corporation, and they won't. One of the things I wanted to tell you too, and I'll say this is more James's opinion. Lockheed Martin is not hiring you because you're in the Army. Don't talk to Lockheed Martin and say, I was a soldier, I need a job. Lockheed Martin is a pay-for-performance company, meaning your skill set is what they want. Don't put platoon sergeant on no piece of paper, because I don't hire platoon sergeants. Don't put no XO without explaining it to the side. We more understand the officer stuff. Don't put section leader, squad leader, and United States Army from 1983 to present. What is your title? My title is a Human Resources Manager. Well, if you are E8 or E7s, you're senior. If you're below that, you're not senior. If you are officer, you're director status, executive. But you have to say the title, and then you got to identify skill sets. I can look at an HR person's resume and I won't look no longer than 10 seconds and can tell we're talking true HR people or we talking people that's putting stuff on their resume to get interviewed. It's not hard. And so make sure that the person knows who you are. Because in my company, out of the 278 recruiters, there are probably 10 of them that were in the military. So what that tells you, if you put platoon sergeant on there, they running me down trying to say, what that mean? And if I don't know, file 13, because there are 300 people or more competing for every opportunity that we open. So the more you can differentiate yourself and make yourself stand out, I call it making your resume audition. So if you take your resume, cover it up, give it to one of your colleagues so they can't look at your name, because people don't want to hurt your feelings sometimes when they know it's your resume. Just say, tell me what that person is. Just based off the skill sets. That's how I read a resume. That's how I teach hiring managers to read a resume in our company. And if I can't tell what you are, it's not good.
Okay, great. I just want to address real quick the last questions. I've seen a lot of people who conducted interviews, great interviews. Say, hey, what questions do you have? Oh, no, I don't have any. You want to close the interview with asking for the job. Even if you don't want it, hey, I am so excited. What's the next step in the process? You want it, and then you can ask follow-on questions. Well, how many other people are you considering? When would you be making a final decision? Would it be okay if I call, follow back up with you? Those are some of the questions, but you have to ask for the job. And I usually use one. If I've gone through a tough interview, one of my favorite questions is, this company is great. I've seen some good things about the company, but if there was one thing that you can change about the company, what would it be? every time I ask that, you get tap dancing, you know, but I want them to know that I'm interviewing them as well. So I wanted to answer that, but you gotta ask, one of the last questions should be asking for the job. Now, as far as social media, I tell you, how many people here are on LinkedIn? Okay, if you're not on LinkedIn, you're missing the boat. I mean, there's 225 million users on LinkedIn. It's not Tinder, it's not Match, it's not Craigslist, Facebook. It is a professional networking site. In fact, Shell found me on LinkedIn because I wasn't looking. And that's the best time to look. I mean, that's the best time is when people are sending you offers, you know. So you should be connecting with individuals on LinkedIn. In fact, my motto was network or not work. In fact, when Camilla told me about this event, the panels here was the first people I connected to. Hey, how you guys doing? I'm expanding my network. I'd like to be a part of your network, you know, because it's not what you know, it's what people know about you or who they know. It's going to be the ones that the opportunities that's open up. So I get daily people want to connect with me, but utilize LinkedIn. Very, very powerful tool. In fact, you can drill down. If I'm looking for a specific engineering background, whatever it is, I can do Boolean searches, search for a particular area, military background, in Virginia, whatever location, and then it'll come up. You know, and I encourage you to look at this one person. This is what I don't want you to do. Her name is Nina Ali. She actually sent me an invite, an opportunity to connect. And she's definitely not using it properly. Her professional summary was, I'm looking for a good man on here. So that is not the way you want to use LinkedIn. Again, it is so I've had 2 crazy invites, and that was one. And as, of course, you can not accept to connect with that individual. But you want to be able to, just like a newspaper, you want to have a highlight on your, so like on mine, it's like looking for exceptional military background, military talent. So then a lot of times, and also making posts. You want to join, you can join military groups, you can join other groups on LinkedIn, make comments within LinkedIn. That'll get you some additional exposure. The best way to have is to have people extending opportunities to you. And then I'll move on to the resume. So yeah, LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn, in fact, you should by the end of the day have probably 50 to 75 additional contacts, because you should be connecting to at least the panel and everybody else that you've connected with. And my motto is network or not work. And as far as resume, tell you up front, resume, I struggle with that. When I transitioned, 4 months unemployed, you know, I had this resume, gave it to a company, did my resume, they printed out a nice 3-page resume, and I was wondering why I wasn't getting any callbacks. Because everything I told them, my whole life history, from the day I walked into the day I'm looking to interview. First of all, a resume is not going to be perfect. It's a working document. And just think of it as, how do you know if the resume is successful? Think of it when you go down or you're on the range. If you zero your weapon, think of your resume as a weapon, your weapon for finding employment. So you're going to zero that weapon. How do you know if it's good? Because you're getting downrange feedback. People are calling you, they're interested in you doing a telephone interview, they're interested in setting up interviews with you. So use that as a measuring for the success of your resume. And lastly, minimize the amount of people that take a look at your resume. Because if I pass my resume around this room, I'll probably get 50 different recommendations. Yes. Keep it down to 1 or 2 persons, you know, and then test it. 3-round bursts, you know, try to get that 5 out of 6 rounds in the 4-centimeter circle, so get it 0. And that's how you judge it, based on the callbacks you're getting.
All right, so shameless plug, since we're talking social media. HRJ Strategies, all one word, hrjstrategies.com. That's my website. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, you can follow me. So by the end of the day, I'd like to see a bunch of you following me. I have a stack of business cards right here. Now for my friends in the room, and I know who you are, don't take one of my cards because I know you already have them. But for the others of you who have no idea, who I've never met before, you take one of my cards, you send me an email, I will personally look at your resume and help you with it. There are a lot of companies that will charge you money for it. I'll do it free of service. just to help you, because I want you guys to be successful like I was successful, because I had people help me. A lot of the people that are up here on this panel and others have helped me, so I'm going to pass it on. All right, so there's the stack. All right, second, I went through 39 resumes this morning because we have an open position at SC Housing. I spent an hour and a half at 7 o'clock in the morning, and most of you know that I'm not a morning person. I barely had had my Dunkin' Donuts coffee. That was it. If you didn't make the audition, I passed 33 of the 39 applicants. The other 6 just didn't meet the qualifications. As I go through that, that's how much time, you guys can do the math, that's what I'm looking at to pass it to the hiring managers. Because we have to fill these positions, but I'm getting to the point now where I know exactly what I'm looking for from a technical and cultural fit for my agency. And if you don't show it to me on that screen flow, or when I click and open your resume as an attachment, that's the end of the interview. You shouldn't have to go through too many hoops in smaller organizations. There are a lot of big companies that will make you go through this interview maze. It really should be a phone call and a conversation followed by an in-person interview. If it's much more complicated than that, you may want to think about how their processes are going to align with what you want to do, and how much creativity and how much freedom of movement, because something that's that structured, that's rigid, unless you're in a large organization like the panel members here, small organizations don't have that kind of time to hire. We don't have to weed through that many. Usually you're going to be competing against anywhere between 20 and 40 quality applicants. So that's what I would say. As far as social media goes also, check your photos that are public, because some photos out there will be really entertaining discussion points. And so I'm a theater guy. I've been on stage. Lots of people take photos of me in a gorilla costume doing a Disney Tarzan. That's a really interesting conversation piece with a hiring manager. So tell me a little bit about this photo. So just food for thought.
So I'll start off by, do we have a question?
We do.
Okay.
Sorry, I guess I just have to speak a little louder. Misty Sheehan, civilian, Army wife. One of the things that I noticed with like USAJobs.gov and a couple other companies that I've worked for is that there are certain words you don't use on your application and your resume. I can't remember them now because they're not on there anymore. But can you answer me what words, when you're looking at someone's resume, no matter how beautiful it is, will make you kind of twinge a little and put it at the bottom of the pile?
And I won't say that there's any particular word in my experience that'll turn me off, but if your resume says nothing, and at the end of the resume, it says you got 5 MSMs, I'm immediately turned off. I'm like, okay. And it's cool that you've done this admirable, whatever caused you to earn these MSMs, but you're not telling me anything else. So we have 2 different types of resumes. If you're not familiar, you have the one that you use to apply for federal jobs, the one that you use on USA Jobs, right? That's a long resume. It can be 10, 15 pages long. That you write everything, you say everything. And on the commercial side, you have a very simple 2-page resume. That's a very, very tight summary of what you've done throughout your career and throughout your life. So if that's all you have space for, I think that it's a little more relevant to add things that quantifiable, things that can be measured, highly successful things, rather than focus on, I think some of the examples were given earlier, platoon leader and positions, names of units, specific companies of the units that you worked at.
There's and I'm gonna pass it back to you, Julie, so you can answer those other 2 questions. There is, what I would recommend you do is go to the ACAP offices. Are they called ACAP? Yeah, isn't that horrible?
Soldier for Life Transition Assistance Program.
The company that I worked for just before I left. So I apologize for that. Go to the Soldier for Life Assistance offices. There is a book that they give out during the you're out processing in your transitioning period, there is a website that you can go to. In essence, it's like scrambling words is what it does. So you would put in a word. Wordle, thank you. It's
Yes.
called Wordle. You'll put in a word in this field, and it'll bring up several words that are comparable to that word, starting with the one that's trending the most. This is the danger by putting trendy verbiage on your resume. Everybody does it.
Yes.
So a technique that I would tell you to do is Wordle that. Go to this Wordle website, put in your word, and choose the second or third word down. Words that tend to have more than 2 syllables or 3 syllables are too much for platforms. So in GE, we use a platform to vet your resume first. So everybody goes in the pool. Whatever resume comes in goes through this HR platform to vet out, looking for particular language or particular statements. Then those come out, the ones that are good come out on the top. And then a human being looks at it, and if they see a trendy word on every activity that you've done, it becomes suspect. So remember, your resume is a formal discussion. There are no right or wrong words, they're just overused words or overcomplicated words. Okay? And we're going to go back to the...
So one other thing that will make me push away from a resume is the email address that you may have chosen to use for your professional resume. So if your email address says Big Daddy
You had to go there.
at
You did the Big Daddy.
yahoo.com or Big Texas Longhorn or Sweet Hot Cheeks Mama, whatever.
Pumpkin stuffed daddy,
Pump-
I saw one. I swear to God.
I've seen it all. It's pretty bad. So the best, safest way, your first name, dot your last name. If you have to add some numbers to it, go for it. But first name, dot last name, keep it clean, keep it professional. Nobody cares if you're a Red Sox fan, okay?
Hey.
Sorry.
Good Yankee fan, good Yankee fan.
Yankees right here.
YankeeForLife.com.
Yeah.
So just keep it clean, keep it simple, keep it professional. Make me want to email you. As far as one of the things that I had the privilege of talking about on Tuesday was networking. Network because you want to. Network because you are interested in building relationships, because we're in the business of relationships already. Okay? Don't network because you're about to get out of the army and now you need some friends on the outside to hook you up. Okay? You network because right now is when it matters to start building those relationships and planting those seeds. Right now, start being present in the moment, in the lives of people that matter. Make moments that matter. Make impactful exchanges with people that you want to exist in your life for years to come. Because I know some of you aren't quite ready to retire yet, but when that day comes, I sure as heck hope that Julie Bermia is still in my Rolodex. Because if you're reaching out to me 5 years from now and we haven't spoken, I'm going to be looking at you sideways like, where have you been? Okay? But know that just like Colonel Galuzzo said, if you're here in this room right now, I hope that you take the time to copy down my contact information. I also have business cards. My professional email address, my personal email address is office@juliebermia.com. And I'm happy to share my personal cell phone number with you as well. And just as Colonel Galuzzo, I'll be happy to look at your resume and happy to answer any questions that you might have to prepare you for the next steps. And if you're not ready for those next steps yet, and you just want to build your network, I ask that you connect with me on LinkedIn. You can even Facebook friend request me if you'd like. And let's be friends. Let's make relationships. Okay? Oh, well, lastly, I'll just say that profiles and LinkedIn. I get at least one invitation from a recruiter a week dropped in my box. And I'm not even looking for a job, okay? And I'm saying this because they're out there, and opportunities are out there. I just recently posted a professional photo of myself. That took me to have to go to a photo studio and spend some money and get a picture taken. And if your profile picture right now, even though I think that that uniform looks pretty cool and high speed, it's good while you're in and on active duty, but if you're looking to transition into a professional job, then you want that hiring officer or that recruiter to see that you would make a good fit in their organization. So you need to look the way they look if you want that type of job. So I encourage you to take that professional photo in your professional attire, update your profile, clean up your Facebook, lock down your account so that if things are out there that don't need to be seen, maybe they don't need to be seen, because I sure look on Facebook, and I certainly look on LinkedIn.
Thank you for the several people, by the way, who have requested my LinkedIn. I've already accepted you. Thank you.
Okay, out of control. So, like my colleagues up here, I too have cards, and I would be more than willing to look at your resume and to give you some additional discussion points on social media. What I want you to understand about social media, just like when you're a soldier, it's all about the brand of the soldier. It's really all about the brand of you. And that's what social media is. It's a branding technique and platform. And they are interconnected. So what you have on your Facebook may not be directly on your LinkedIn, but when you Google a person's name, it all comes up. And the first place they're going to go to is they're going to go to your Facebook first, because they believe that's where you're most genuine. And then they're going to go to your LinkedIn afterwards. As you're continuing to protect your brand as a soldier, you should start protecting your brand as a civilian, which means everybody that reaches out to you, you don't LinkedIn them. You do not connect with everybody. I know people think, I've got 50,000 followers and I've got 25. Yeah, that's nice. But unless you have a relationship past how you're doing, those 500 followers or connections mean nothing. 9 times out of 10, somebody wants to connect with you, and here's the drastically truth. When you're an E7 and above, they're connecting for you for your Rolodex. Who do you know in this service that they can talk to get to something that has absolutely nothing to do with you? That's the first thing. If you're E6 and below, if I connect with you, then you're going to connect me to your supervisor. That's the first mindset. I just really want you to think about that. And I actually had discussions with LinkedIn reviewers. So one of the things I did to prepare to come out is I went to an association meeting for the Society of Human Resources, and they had a LinkedIn reviewer. They had actually 3, so you went through 3 cycles. And they tell you the strength and what looks good and what doesn't look good. And speaking to Julie's point and speaking to the rest of the panel's point, a professional photo is not a glamour shot. Not so much. So when you're a female, a little mascara, a hint of eyeshadow, neutral lipstick, a nice calm stance, and a smile. If you're uncomfortable and you're tight, then a technique is you tilt your head a bit. And if you feel more uncomfortable, you can cross your arms and your body will naturally slant. So when you take your photo, you look at ease for your photo on LinkedIn. The profile picture you use on Facebook is not the same you use on LinkedIn. Make it separate. We want to see separate because I want to see the total you. When you're looking at your profile, if somebody reaches out to you, you can 9 times out of 10 look at their profile. What I usually do is if you say, I want to connect to Sherry Davis, I don't tell you no right away, and I don't tell you yes right away. I stop and I'll read your bio. I read everything that's going on. I look at the companies you're following. I look at the comments you've made. Then I go out and I look at your Facebook. And then I come back and I think about it for a day. And then I reach out to you personally. I say, thanks so much for reaching out to me to connect. I look forward to a conversation. When's a good time? And then I call you and I find out what you want. Or what do you need from me? And if it's mutual, then I will connect. Thank you so much for connecting. I look forward to leveraging you. I tell them why I'm doing it, so that when you come back, you can leverage them, okay? When you're talking about getting yourself, presenting what you put in LinkedIn and presenting what you say in public, you are always being interviewed. From the very first time you tell somebody, I am thinking about transitioning, they hear think, transition. That's all they hear. All the other stuff you said before, they don't hear. All the other stuff you're saying behind, they don't hear. And they're immediately leaping to opportunities that they may have or places you can fit. So from the first time you say to somebody, I am going to transition, I'm thinking, every time you open up your mouth to have a discussion, it is going to be a semi-interview. The way I really got my GE job was, a girlfriend of mine is the global diversity leader. And I didn't realize she had been interviewing me for a year. All of a sudden, out of the blue, she's coming to all of my events. And she usually just sends a gift. She came to my retirement, she came to a promotion, she came to an event I did at work. She showed up at a Fortune 500 organization discussion. She showed up at a job fair. And she just kept cataloging what my interactions look like. So it's probably not the person who's going to hire you that you're being interviewed by, but somebody that they're going to talk to champion for you. And that's what the social media will do for you if leveraged correctly. Check your profile, make sure it looks clean, make sure your picture's not a selfie, make sure it's not a glamour shot. It only costs $25 to $50 to get a picture done, and it's good to go. Okay?
I know we're out of time or over time, but one thing that you can do on Google is to Google your name if you haven't ever done that before. Google your name and then also click on the images tab and see if there's any images of you out there because you want to be aware of how you're presented. And you can Google my name. If you Google Rebecca Hastings, SPHR, you will see all kinds of articles and things that I've written. You will not see any weird stuff about me, or at least you shouldn't. Another tip I wanted to say about LinkedIn is that you can apply for jobs directly on LinkedIn. And so if your profile on LinkedIn is really nice and clean and has the HR director, HR manager, it's really easy to understand. That's a shortcut for applying for jobs. And so it might be worth trying that. And then the last thing I wanted to say was about the groups. Participating in military groups is great, but you also want to show the world what else you're interested in. So presumably as HR professionals, most of you, you're interested in HR. So being involved in HR groups and participating actively there is a great idea. And so shameless plug for HRCI. Our group, our official group is HRCI Voices. There are other groups that have PHR and SPHR on them. They are not official groups, but you can participate in them as well and interact with other HR professionals there.
Just one more thing. We've all extended the opportunity to help you. Would make it easier, because just like you get 25,000 emails and you scan and you go, yeah, maybe not today. Please put in the subject line specifically for me, and I'm sure it'll help everybody else. Combat to corporate? Is that? Please put combat to corporate.
Combat to corporate.
I'm a little dyslexic sometimes, and I admit it. So please put that inside of the subject line. And then in the first sentence, what is it that you want and need? So we can kind of prioritize, because it's not my intent to make you wait, but I just got to prioritize. And I will reach back out, but help me do that for you.
Okay, thank you. Wow, that's some great information. We're going to close out with the closing remark. Major Lumber, the Chief of Performance, he's going to do the closing remarks and consider panelists.
Hey, first, let's hear it for our panel members, please. On behalf of Colonel Ussery, who is, since his regrets that he can't be here, the Chief of the Corps, Colonel Jack Ussery, is most of you, at least in uniform, know this is an absolutely crazy week, AG Regimental Week. We've got events going on all over the place. So it's my honor to represent Colonel Ussery. A couple things. First, let's hear it for Kim Cheese. I'm honored to have her on our team, at least for 2 more days, I think, before she moves to a different position inside the AG school. As Kim said, I'm the Chief of Performance and Leader Development Division. Part of my job and our team's responsibilities is the lead for our Corps with Soldier for Life initiatives. That's one piece of what we do. So this really hits home with some of the stuff we're trying to accomplish within our Corps and across the Army. And a couple things that I took note of. First, in an era of unprecedented support from political leaders to corporate America to private industry leadership, this is an example of that, but also that there's no free chicken. And a lot of the things they talked about, I liked one comment that, don't just put that you are a soldier and think that that's enough to get your foot in the door. You've got to sell yourself. There's no free chicken. As we look at that idea of crossing the Rubicon from uniform into civilian attire, from combat to corporate, that can be very daunting. But I also heard a lot of common threads permeate this conversation, from things we talk about in my role as leader development chief to the things that they're looking for in resumes and LinkedIn bios. From the conversations we have with our subordinates about making your ORB or ERB say the right things about what you've done, and your DA photo looking appropriate because that's your handshake to the board, that sounds an awful lot like our conversation about your LinkedIn profile and your resume. And so a lot of those same things, it's scary, it's daunting, but that divide is not so wide. And then you've got to work that network or no work. Thank you, sir. I wrote that one down too. I like that. You work that piece because you're not going it alone. As we inculcate in our culture this soldier for life concept, 5 of our 6 panel members are an example of that as soldiers for life. And Rebecca, we're going to grandfather you in because if it wasn't said earlier, her daughter just graduated from VMI and was commissioned as an aviator who just joined the ranks of the Army. So we're very proud for Rebecca for that accomplishment of her daughter. So this is a testament of that soldier for life and a profound example of the tremendous potential that is on this side of the room, reflected by the success of those up here who not too long ago, in fact, I replaced Lieutenant Colonel Galuzzo, if you didn't know that, as the PLDD chief. So not that long ago, they were in your shoes looking across that divide that seemed and felt so wide, but their testimony today is certainly going to help you to build that bridge. So I personally thank you for that, and on behalf of Colonel Usry, thank you for your wise words today. We're going to give a few tokens of appreciation. If I could have CW5 Chief Warrant Officer of the Corps, Coral Jones, join me, and Kim, who helped put this together. We want to say thank you.
Do you want his bag, sir?
Yes, please, Chief. Thank you. I come bearing gifts. A certificate to put on your wall is nice, but we want you to have a little AG bling as well. So you probably already have one of those, but
Actually, I don't have one of the new ones. This is nice.
let's see. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you. And then Mr. Raymond. Sir, it's an absolute pleasure.
I will tell you,
Mr.
mine
Shelton.
is on my desk and my coffee mug sits on it.
Chief, thank you so much. I only regret that I wasn't here for the whole thing. The things that you all had to say were absolutely phenomenal.
I actually used that one. That one's sitting on my desk.
And lastly, I'll offer, this is also a testament of the inevitability of transition. So that's really a lot of what the idea of Soldier for Life is all about. There's no shame in your game to start planning now. I bleed green inside. Anybody who knows me knows that. I love the Army. But at some point, either I or the Army will tell me to go away. It's inevitable. So help to inculcate that in your subordinates as well. Participate in events like this because there's no shame in your game of preparing for the inevitable. And in this era of dwindling resources and the Army getting smaller, God bless you, but you really don't know if that's going to be in 20 years or 15 or 30. So start preparing now. And so thank you to all of you who took time out of your busy schedule to be here today. And I'm confident in the part that I got to hear that this was well worth it. So one last time, thank you very much.